Hello, welcome to Pete Shop Makes with me, your host Peter Giamona. And today, in honor of my 1 year anniversary on YouTube, I'm going to be giving you guys a little behind the scenes tour of my shop and the tools that I use, along with some tips and tricks and gadgets. And it's going to be a two-part series. Part 1 will be the tour itself. Part 2 will be more of the gadgets and camera gear, things like that I've used along the way as a maker and a DIYer. So if you're interested more in that, you might want to skip to part 2. Otherwise, let's go ahead and get this tour started. Alrighty, let's go ahead and get started. I have a lot to show you in a relatively short amount of time. So we're going to work our way around from the right, going around to the left, and then we'll finish at the heart of the workshop with the table saw and workbench. So starting right now to the right, we have my lathe, the Harbor Freight 12 by 33.5. And what that means to you, you can turn 12-inch diameter bowls and 33.5-inch bed length here, which means you can turn table legs, baseball bats, things like that. Some say that it's underpowered. It is 3/4 horse, but I find it to work just fine. If you've seen any of my videos, you know I've turned some relatively large logs and haven't really had any issues with that whatsoever. A magnet grabber. This thing is worth its weight in gold. I mean, just super handy for dropping things underneath your lathe or underneath your workbench or anywhere in the shop for that matter. But super handy. Moving down the line, this is a fold-up workbench assembly area. I have all my screws, nuts, and bolts. Then I have my slow-speed grinder. It's got the Wolverine Vari-Grind attachment jig on it for grinding my lathe tools. Here's my miter saw station, the Ryobi sliding compound miter saw. With some fine tuning, it can be pretty accurate, but it tends to lose that accuracy relatively quickly, so you got to check it every once in a while. You'll notice at every tool I have, there's a pair of safety glasses and a 6-foot ruler. Anytime I use either, I always try to make sure that I will return them to where the tool that I got them. Some storage up here. I always got to have. No, I did not rob an elementary school. That's just my pencil supply. Just when you think you have enough, you lose them all. So got to have plenty of pencils. Over here, I call this the grocery store for any maker or DIYer. This is just where I keep all of my parts and pieces for things. Copper pipe, wax, glass works, brackets, motors, pulleys, things like that. All the good stuff. This is my back door. I made this sheath here for my machete. But anyways, I use this big beast right here to draw in a lot of fresh air and get a cross breeze going across my shop because it gets scorching hot out here. And this beast moves a lot of air. And along in combination with this guy here, I have a furnace filter behind it. Filter out some of that dust that tends to linger in the air. And that actually works great. It's a cheap solution to air filtration. This sink here, I installed this when I moved into the shop. There was no plumbing. I essentially just ran a hose along the outside and tapped in, and then it just drains into a bucket, and then I empty it accordingly. But this is something that I thought was kind of unique. My own little design I came up with. This was just a closet dowel rod. And I drilled a straight hole through it all the way through, cut it at a 45-degree angle, and in one half of it I drilled down and put a smaller dowel inside of it, which allows me to attach it like so. And anytime when rinsing out paintbrushes, things like that, once they're all nice and clean, I can just hang them on here and let them drip dry into the sink. And I found that to be extremely useful And once they are all clean, then it just is easily put back the way it was and out of the way. Ideally, in a wood shop, you wouldn't have a big mechanics toolbox such as this, but this was my father's, and I really wasn't going to, obviously wasn't going to part with it. So, but it does come in handy. Serves a good purpose for storing all those mechanics tools that I really have nowhere else to store. We have no room in our garage for a toolbox of this size, so it just sits out here, and it does take up a pretty big footprint. But again, like I said, I wasn't going to get rid of it. So, and it's pretty much stock to the way he left it when he passed away. So it's got some sentimental value as well. Over here is my wood storage. This was some saddle racks that I got from Tractor Supply. They were on clearance, and originally like $100. I got them for like 20. And so I jumped at the chance, and I thought it would make a good wood storage, which it does. I keep all my softwoods on top, jigs, plywood, things like that, and then all my hardwood down here. Try to get most of my wood for free, cabinet shops, things like that. Down here is some other wood that I milled, drying for bowls and things like that on the lathe. Other skinnier scraps. Oh, back on the miter station, down below, all my offcuts. I just use these little buckets that I clip in with these type of clips, and it makes them easily removable. And to be able to go through these bins and sort through them and take out the wood that I need. And I keep anything over 6 inches on this side, anything under 6 inches over here, and it just helps to organize my wood supply a little bit better. So then over here, just more sheet goods storage, and everything's up on little hooks, and it keeps it up off the concrete, and which is important. Next, we have this is where I keep all my combination squares, speed squares, things like that. You probably can't see in here, but these are just some holes that I drilled and put in some neodymium magnets, which hold my squares in there and keep them from falling out. Some sanding disc storage. This is my Delta belt and disc sander. I got at a garage sale for $20. Couldn't really balk at it. This is my high-speed grinder, which I just have on a little roll-out drawer. And I mainly use this for knives and sharpening, anything like that requires high-speed grinding or sharpening. Got my Craig jig over here. This is just some storage. This here was an old bathroom cabinet from our master bath when we moved in. I removed it and repurposed it as a paint and finish cabinet. All my top coats, other adhesives, and then down below is just all my solvents and lubricants. These here are cheap basting brushes. You can get these at dollar store or Walmart or anything like that. And they're silicone. I'll show you some other silicone items here in a minute that I use that are extremely useful because nothing will stick to them. Next is kind of my newer addition to the shop. It's my French cleat wall. And but here is my Murphy bar that I made in a previous video. And it was kind of the first beginning prototype, and I wasn't gonna sell it or get rid of it, so because it's got some flaws and things like that, but it works well. It just has an additional storage and work surface, and then it folds up and out of the way. Next, I got my Ryobi drill press, and this was the table that I added because the stock table that comes with it, this cast iron, far too small for my needs. So I just went and put a nice big sheet on there and cut out this little slot for the hand crank to be able to turn through. And again, more eye protection, measuring tape, pencils. On the French cleat system, these were some brackets I got at Home Depot, and this isn't entirely how they're supposed to be used for shelving. But I thought it worked well for this purpose. So this all my drill bits, router bits, things like that. Next, my Porter Cable bandsaw. This thing is works really, really well, actually. I have my shop vac on the side, and it all is controlled by this eye socket here, which when I turn the bandsaw on, there's a 7-second delay, which cleans out the lines and keeps anything from clogging. It does run on 220. I have a 220 outlet back there. I just haven't converted it over yet, but that will be in the near future. This here's my little tool cart for all my everyday tools that I use. Just, you know, things that don't need to be put away every day because I'm just going to take them back out the next day. So this was a little vegetable cart. I think I got it at Costco for 20 bucks, something like that. That was my dust collection. I had a Cyclone and all that, but then I got a bunch of these that I just put on every tool, and it seems to work well. Moving down, more French cleat storage. Got my hand plane storage, some mallets that I made, all my chisels, bench chisels, carving chisels. My Harbor Freight wood bench. It's actually a decent quality bench. I don't like the vise on it, and I don't like these dog holes here, so I plugged them up because before, dust would come into these drawers, and it's kind of a pain in the butt. These little guys, don't worry about these little guys. Next, moving down, clamp storage. Can never have too many clamps, and I definitely don't have enough. I do use a shop apron typically to keep my clothes clean. I got my glove storage up here. This was just a old coat hanger that I put some shower curtain rings and clips on, and it keeps all my gloves there at the ready. All right, now at the heart of every good workshop is a good workbench and table saw. So that's right here in the center. This was a bench that I made in a previous video, and it's still holding strong. Obviously you can see it gets plenty of use, and which is, you know, nice about that top is I can easily replace it. But it's been great. I've been really happy with it. This is my Delta table saw. I think it's the Delta 6011 or something like that. 10-inch table saw. And with the router table extension that I put in, I'll show you that in a minute. But right up above is my Win air filtration system, 400 cubic feet per minute, which this is a 400 square foot shop, 9 foot to the rafters, and so which means in about 9 minutes it'll clean out this entire shop. This here is the router table, and I have the Porter Cable. I don't know, it's the pretty common router that I think a lot of people have, but it's just adjustable with this twist of a wrist. You don't need a lift plate or anything like that for your router table, because I have one of these collet extenders in it. This was made by Extreme Extender, and 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch adapter, which allows me to do bit changes above the table with this little Allen wrench. And, you know, I could do micro adjustments and things like that with my Wixie depth gauge. On this side, just more storage, hand tools, mainly a Ryobi and Porter Cable user. I know anvils are big right now, so I went and bought me a giant big anvil. Every shop needs one of those as well. And that's really it. So now I'm going to go ahead and cut this video off, and you can refer to part 2. Alrighty, well, that's the end of part 1. Thanks for hanging out with me on the tour, you guys. And if there's any questions or comments you had, or maybe something I missed or brushed over, go ahead and put them down in the comment section below. And if there's any other feedback, positive, negative, whatever, on ideas or things maybe I could have done differently, or ideas that you guys have, I'd love to hear it. And, you know, would appreciate anything like that. So thanks for sticking around, checking it out. And if you guys want to see all the gadgets and things like that I have in store, go ahead and refer to part 2. Otherwise, I'll catch you on the next one.